again. Right. So this is an example of that document done in InDesign. Now let me show you another example. Oh, it's actually in the same location. Right, here we go. Right. So this was another project that that was done in InDesign. This project was actually, it was a study on a firm that had to be published in this kind of format. So I did a study on Enscape Limited, which is a firm. They have many, it's a visualization firm. They're all over the world. And it was a case study that was done on them. Now, if you look closely, you can see that this has a kind of distinct look to it. There are some colors at the top, and then you have these little angle elements right here. You have a center marker here, and then you have some shades here. Now, this is one of the reasons why you use a desktop publishing program, because this layout, when you print the page on the printer, basically what happens is that these are the major colors of ink that's in the printer. And if any one of these look faded, it can tell you that you would not be experiencing the images at the proper color tone. So that's what these are here for. Also, it gives you things like center markers. So for example, if when this is printed, this marker is like up here, then you can know that the page shifted in the printer. It gives you the safety, the bleed. And what this is for, if you notice some of the graphics, the graphic goes beyond this line here. And that's, so when you cut it, it doesn't give you this weird white edge. You actually have a part of the graphic that goes into the cut. So when you cut, you will get the graphic going all the way to the edge of the page, right? So that is what these bleed markers are for. They tell you that, okay, right, they tell you that the graphic is within the bleed. So when you cut the page, the graphic will extend all the way to the edge of the page, which is ideally what you want to happen when it's printed, right? Notice the amount of text and images that was in this document. So let me just kind of carry you through. So essentially they have a content page. You had some introductions with the photographs, and notice that this is much more graphically intense. So the placement of the different fonts, the titles, the supporting graphics, the layout of the pictures. And then this was a study on the business strategies of that firm, right? So let's take a look on the working file. So this is the InDesign file now. I'll open that in InDesign. And notice that this is going to be doing the same thing again. When you open InDesign, there's a file that's called assets. And when you go in that folder, you will see all of the assets that were used in the project. So these are all the photographs, the original photographs that were used in the project. And then this is the InDesign file. And this InDesign file is going to be looking for everything in this assets folder. So you have to make sure that you save the assets, everything that you use beside the InDesign file. All right. All right, so this is what that layout looks like. Now, if you look at this, you can see that it has so many pages again. So again, this is where InDesign shines, because in order to lay out so many pages, you would have had to use a program that allows you to do that. And for example, all of the page have this graphic where it has the page number and this graphic here. Some of them, there it is. So this was done on the header and the footer, which are those are things that you can recognize from Word. But all of these are different picture frames. You can see I can move them around. You can do things like allow the text to curve around the graphic. Right? And, you know, just dealing with so much pages, it gives you an ideal layout. There you go. So you can keep track of where the pages are. And if you decide that, oh, this page should be somewhere else, you're able to drag and just move pages easily between each other, right? So this is one of the main reasons why you would use InDesign. Now, the last example that I'll show you here, so those are two examples of documents. Right. This one I had shown some time ago. This was that presentation board that was made up of many pages. This is actually on the mirror board, so you can check it out. But this was a combination of multiple inputs from various programs. And this is just saying that you can also use InDesign to lay out your sheets as well. All right. All right. So those were some quick examples of actual projects that were done in InDesign. And what we're going to be tackling for this class is that we're going to do a simple multi-page document, right? And then you guys are going to submit that for this InDesign exercise. Are there any questions based on what you just saw, guys? Any questions? No? All right, let's keep moving. Just like Photoshop and the rest of applications, you're going to choose create new. You're going to see this window pop up, and this is where you choose a document that you want to create. So what we're going to do is we're going to call the assignment 2 part 1. Let's just call it that. All right, then let's go. We're going to choose our orientation. So it's going to be horizontal. Now let's take a look on the sketches, because remember our objective here, you know, our objective here is that we want to create a layout from these simple sketches. We want to have a cover page with some kind of title here. We want to have a page on the inside cover where we have a photo and some kind of text here. Then we want to have another page here that has 3 images with some descriptions at the bottom, and then a back page. Right? So before you lay out any kind of booklet form portfolio, this kind of sketch is what we refer to as a, let's call it a sketch wireframe. Essentially, it's giving you an idea of what you want, how you want to lay out your project. So notice in InDesign you can choose number of pages, right? So this is the part, this is where InDesign starts to differ from the other applications, right? Now in this case we can refer back to our document here. Let's see, here we go. So we know that we wanted to have 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. So we're gonna say 4 pages. Notice you see some other options here. Facing pages, that's what this option is here. And we're gonna look at what that means there. And we're just gonna leave everything else at default. In terms of page size, you could go to print and say letter, landscape, and then we're going to choose. All right. Oh, I think I might have went back and not choose 4 pages, but anyway, we can add more pages as we go along. So this is what the general interface looks like, right? Now I'm using mouse wheel to scroll between pages. Right now I just have 1 page, and I'm holding Alt and mouse wheel to zoom out. Now notice that this workspace differs from the workspace we're used to in InDesign. Sorry, Illustrator or even Photoshop. Now at the top we still have our control bar, and on the left side we still have our tools. Let me just pull that out. So I'm going to undock it so that you can see what that looks like, and I'm going to click this little button here that shows me that I can switch to 2 rows. Oops. That I can switch to 2 rows like that. All right. So you might also notice, so this is your toolbar here, and then you might also notice that the tools are similar. Now notice on your toolbar there are some familiar icons, right? So there is the direct selection, the selection tool and the direct selection tool. So these tools are coming from Illustrator, but then there are a couple of others, and we're not going to really use a lot of them. Obviously we can see our text tool here, and we can see our pen tool here. These will be some of the tools that we'll use a lot. These are our framing tools here. Of course, we know how this operates from Illustrator, where we can choose stroke, color, or fill color. InDesign has a second layer of this where we can choose stroke and fill for text. So for example, if I switch over to text here, you can see that the text itself has its own stroke and fill, and shapes have their own stroke and fill. So that's one new element that InDesign offers. All right, so we're going to look at how all of those stuff works. Now, just like the other Adobe applications, on the right side you have your panels, and these panels can be reconfigured. Now we're not going to go through a whole reconfiguration exercise because you guys have pretty much done that for the last 2 applications, where you know that you can drag out your icons, expand it, and relocate them, and all of these things. So I'm actually using the default layout of InDesign, and we're just going to continue using it that way. All right, now let's keep in mind our mission here, right? Now we do need to create these layouts from the sketch that we had just done. So on our first page, we want to have an image here and some text. Well, let's add the rest of pages in case we didn't add them. So in order to add pages, so notice here, we're now on the pages panel, and this is one of the most important panels in InDesign. Here are our pages, and in order to add more pages, we're going to choose the add more pages here. All right, so I have now added 4 pages. Notice how my layout changes, and I'm going to just kind of zoom out here using Alt and mouse wheel. So I have my page 1. Look at how it laid out my center spread. And then I have the final page over here. Now in InDesign, you have your page and then you have your work areas. I don't know if you remember in Illustrator, you had your page and your work area as well. But in InDesign, your page is here. And then your work area is everywhere over this side here. Now you can place items for this page on the page or in the work area. If it is not on the page, then it's not going to be printed. But let's say you have an item that you're not sure that you're going to put on the page. You would store that in the work area, and then you just drag it over to the page when you're ready, right? This is similar to how you might find yourself working in Illustrator. But it's very different to how you will find yourself working in Photoshop, because as you might have realized in Photoshop, you can't put anything beyond the canvas that you're working. Notice that when you create these pages, you have the numbers for your page here. Also, notice that you have this little letter in the top. This is little A here. And these letters are referring to the slide master. Now, I don't know if any one of us are PowerPoint veterans, right? But if you use PowerPoint a whole lot, then you would, chances are you would come across a feature called a slide master. Now, a slide master is simply whatever you put on these pages, that's this page here and this page here, will appear on every page. So whatever you put on this side will appear on all pages on this side, and whatever you put on this side will appear on all pages this side. So InDesign is really made for you to do documents. So if you're doing a 40-page document and you needed to put an icon or something on each page, just like how Word has, well, let me throw that question out. Word has that feature. What is it called? Exactly. That is a feature where you put some items in the header and the footer. I'm sure most people here use the header and footer features in Word, right? Guys? Anybody use the header and footer feature in Word?
Use the header and do what, sir?
The header or footer feature
In Microsoft Word?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have.
Right. So in InDesign, where they have a slide master, it's kind of the same thing. Basically, whatever you put on one slide will appear on all the other pages. All right. So
Yes,
this is
sir, I
like that, but it's a
understand.
bit more robust. Right. So anything you put on one page, it will show on the others. You can have multiple slide masters. So for example, let's say all of chapter 1 in your book have a purple background and all of chapter 2 has a red background. Then you would make a slide master for chapter 1 and a slide master for chapter 2. All right. We can look at an example of how slide masters work right after the exercise. All right. Now, in addition to that, it tells you your page number, right? So you might notice that you see you have page 1 here, then page 2 and 3, and then page 4. All right, good. All right. So on page 1, let's zoom in here to page 1, and I'm using spacebar and I'm using spacebar and left click to pan around. And remember what we're going to put on page 1. We want to put a headline image and a title text below. Now to do that, we're going to use up what we call frames. Now on the left hand side here, we have rectangular frame tool. We're going to click on that and we're going to draw a frame in like that. Now a frame is simply indicating that we intend to put an item here, and the item we intend to put here will have this shape. So we're going to line this up. So notice that I can get my center line there. I'm going to make it a bit wider. Center like that. It's a frame tool that's located right here. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to put is a title here. So in this case, I'm going to put my name. Now to do that, I'm going to use the text tool. And click there, and I'm going to just click and drag to put my title here. And I'm going to say Ryan Williams. All right. Now you might notice that the text is a bit small. So we would know in order to change the text. Now this works very similar to Illustrator. When I click on the text here, notice that it will change items above. So for example, if I click on this frame, it will change items above. If I click on this text, notice the same thing. So when I click on text, I get certain options that is related to this object that I have selected. So of course I can change the font size and all of these things. And guess what? This bar will differ depending on how wide your screen is. So for example, if I'm using a computer that's this small, then notice I'm only getting some tools. But if I'm working with it this wide, I will get more tools. But remember, your control bar at the top is really a kind of quick launch. It's not the go-to place to see all your tools, right? To see all your tools, you would need to go to Window, and for example, if I wanted to see my text tools, I'd go to Type and Tables, and then I would open my character panel. And this looks familiar. You guys should recognize this panel from Photoshop and Illustrator. So this is my character. Let's see, what else do I want to turn on? Let's also turn on our paragraph as well. All right, so I have two panels paragraph tool and the character tool. I don't know if you noticed, but these tools have a bit more options than what you might see them have in the other applications. And that's because InDesign is meant for desktop publishing and the manipulation of large bodies of text. Alright, so it will have more tools to do that. So I'm going to dock these two tools together. You guys know how to do that already, and I'm just going to rest this over here in the meantime. Okay, let's put it over here. All right, so I want to make this a little bigger, so I'm going to click on this frame over character, and I'm going to use, I can actually use my up and down arrow keys to let this text bigger. There we go. Also, we're going to let's try centric goth. Bold. Yeah, that's okay. Now, you don't have to follow me exactly. You can use your own font. I'm going to go over to paragraph. I'm going to put that in the center. And then I'm going to align this in the center here. All right. So once you have that lined up there, next we want to add in our image. Now remember, the content that you are to use, you're actually given it already, right? So you need to access your content by going to the click here to access exercise files, right? So this is where your exercise files are. So you will see a picture called project title page here. So I'm going to go to that folder, project title page. I'm going to download this. All right, good. So now that I have downloaded it, I am going to browse to where I've downloaded it to. And I'm going to drag it in. Now here's an important point. When you're dragging things in InDesign, when you release it, you want to release it inside your frame here. As a matter of fact, there are multiple ways to drag things in. Before you drag stuff in, the proper way to get it in is to go to File, Place, and you might recognize this whole feature already because you might have done it in Photoshop. And I'm going to look for, here we go, project title page. And there we go. Now notice that because I had this frame selected, the image went inside the frame. Now you notice that the image is kind of cut off. Oh, as a matter of fact, no, we used the wrong image. We're supposed to use the your text image here. So let's change that out. So with this frame selected, again, I'm going to go to, oh wait, let's download that text first. So if I go back to here, here it is, insert your text here. I'm going to download this text. There we go. So this is an Illustrator file. Now let's go back to InDesign, and with this frame selected, I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm going to select this Illustrator file here. I'm going to double click that. All right, so it has placed this inside the frame. Now in this case, notice that the frame is not quite big enough. So in order to change the size of the frame, I'm going to just drag these out. Now notice that when I'm dragging these out, it's actually not changing the width of the file, the document. Instead, it is really changing the size of this window that is viewing the document. Now these are some important key points here, because if I wanted to move the actual document, I would need to use my direct selection tool. Anybody remember that tool from Illustrator? So that's the direct selection tool, and then I would have to move that. And notice now that I'm moving this inside the frame. All right, now this title text here, I'm going to remove that actually, because the text that I need is inside this document. So I'm going to resize the frame to match the margin. These are your margins here. And by the way, these margins are not printed. They're just there as visual indicators, right? So I'm going to position this like about there. All right. Now this that I've inserted is actually an Illustrator file. So how do I edit this? Well, I could actually click on this and go right click and say edit original. So when I do that, then it's actually going to open in Illustrator. Now I hope you guys see what is really happening here. This is really an Illustrator file that I have inserted in InDesign. InDesign previews the file, but I'm not able to edit it. You know, I can't edit this text here because this text is only this content is only editable in Illustrator. So in Illustrator, I'm going to actually put my text there by just double clicking, and this is a group. So I'm going to say Ryan Williams you are and I'm gonna maybe just center that up, maybe just to the right side. You guys don't have to do it exactly like what I'm doing here, so you can put whatever name you want to put here. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click save and go back to InDesign. Now here's the important thing. Notice in InDesign I get a little triangle that's located on this frame, and this triangle is actually telling me that this has been modified, and I can click to update. So I'm gonna do that, and bam, notice that it has now updated. Now next, I want to add some additional text on this page. So let's add, for example, my ID number. Well, now I would use text, and I would just go here, and I could just click and drag to draw my text box frame and write ID number 34567. Now, just like before, I'm going to make this big. So I'm going to use my character panel, and I'm going to change that to centric, one of my favorite typefaces. All right, and I'm going to just arrange this frame like there. Good. Let's right align it. You know, I'm choosing options here just based on my preference. So as I say, you don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing. There you go. All right, so I'm zooming with Alt and mouse wheel, and I'm panning with spacebar and left click, just like Photoshop and Illustrator. So I've created this title page here, and I've created it from 2 frames. My first frame is created from content from Illustrator, and this other frame here, this text frame, is really text that is added in InDesign. Now, another thing you might notice is that this preview looks very blocky. Now, don't pay any attention to that, because InDesign is actually set up to preview in this low resolution way so that your performance doesn't take a hit. So if you were trying to do a 10-page document in Illustrator, you would notice that your Illustrator starts to really slow down because of all the content. But InDesign can take thousands of pages and still remain very fast. And this is one of the reasons why it does this, because it makes the preview a low resolution. Now, if I should print this document, so let me save it first, just in case it crashes. By the way, InDesign has very good crash recovery. I mean, that doesn't mean you shouldn't save, but you know, I'm just telling you. So I'm gonna save this to my desktop, and I'm gonna just print it out just to show you guys an example here. So I'm going to export, and I'm going to export to a PDF to my desktop. I'm going to leave everything on default and just choose export. Okay, good. And then on my desktop now, I'm going to open that project. And notice, see, I get nice vector text because this text is actually coming directly from Illustrator, but it's being produced through InDesign. So everything is nice and sharp, just the same. Even though my preview doesn't look nice and sharp. Now, if you want to let your preview look nice, you can change your view to overprint. And notice that you see in all of these lines and frames here, sometimes you can't really get a good appreciation of what the final picture looks like. Well, if you go to Window and turn on, View and turn on Overprint Preview, then notice all of the text frames go away and you get the high resolution preview. But you might notice that your InDesign may start to slow down a bit depending on how much pages you have. So I'm going to turn that off while I'm manipulating. Okay, good stuff. Now, next we're going to go to the other layout. So let's go back on our mirror board here. Remember guys, this is your assignment path. So everyone needs to complete this full path in order to get their 15% for this assignment. So right now I'm right here where I'm at step 1, learn how to use Adobe InDesign, and this is what I'm doing. And I'm now creating this layout here. So this layout has a title text here, it has an image and some text here. So what I'm going to do is let's create those frames. So, and what you can do sometimes is maybe if you don't remember what your layout looks like, you can just have it side by side so that it can keep you reminded of what you want your layout to look like. So I'm going to actually this over here, and that's what we're doing. So from this concept, we know that we want to have some kind of text here. We want to have a image here. So we're going to have a frame, and then we're going to have some text here. So let us execute that. So let's close that. So first thing we need to do is to draw our frame. So we're going to choose the frame tool again, and I'm going to put in a frame like about here. Then we know we want to have some text, so we're going to use our text tool, and we're going to put in a text frame here. We're going to make the size big enough. So now here is something that we can do. Title here. So let's write introduction. All right, so just like before, I'm gonna make that center Gothic. Like Word. Right. Actually, yes, there is. Your text styles are located. That's a what's it called? That's a panel that you need to enable. So under type and table, you would it should be under character. Oh, paragraph styles, character styles. There we go. So it would be under character styles that you would create the different styles. But we're not going to go into that just yet. We're going to keep it just surface for now. But that is the direction that you would go. And then you would have, like, when something is a title text, you just choose title text and it would choose a particular font size and typeface. All right. Okay. So we're gonna put introduction here. I'm gonna right align it. So I'm going to go to my paragraph tool here and right align it there. And notice now that you can really start to snap frames together. So that frame can be snapped there, and we can make this about that. Now next, we're gonna put in the placeholder text. Now, so we're gonna create another text frame, and I'm just gonna draw it in here. But here is a beauty of InDesign. You can actually design what your text should flow like in InDesign. So for example, InDesign has a built-in feature to simulate what a paragraph would look like using what's called placeholder text. Now to access that, you're going to go to type and you're going to go to fill with placeholder text. So this is what this text would feel like on this page, right? And of course, this is representing what we had right here, but we're just now trying to lay it out. We're trying to interpret this sketch in a more accurate way. All right. So if I actually zoom in here, you will see that this text is really gibberish, right? So it's not really saying anything, but it's simulating what a paragraph would look like. Now, how we align this has a lot to do with the principles of design, which we're going to look on over the next couple weeks. But for now, for this tutorial, we're just going to follow along. Now, I'm going to lay out my text like that and like this and like here. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to go to character, paragraph, and I'm going to let it justify with a line left. So when I do that, then my full body of text will fill out this, the profile area, and it will end on the left. So it won't try to space out this last line to fill the entire line. Then I'm going to double click in here and I'm going to insert a new paragraph here. Then I'm going to change my font size. I can't change it up here because my screen isn't wide enough. So I'm going to just use my character panel. And character, I'm going to just use my up arrow, make that bigger. All right, now what I'm actually doing now is I'm actually designing the flow of my text. So notice now that I've made the characters bigger so it can't fit in the frame, and I get this little red dot here, and that tells me that, hey, there is parts of this document that could not fit in this frame. Now remember, I'm really designing the flow of my words, so this is really gibberish. So I can decide to have less words. Let's do that for here as well. There we go. Now the great thing about this gibberish text is that when you actually get to put in your actual text, you will have an idea of how many words are needed to fill in this space. Meaning that if you are actually going to write an introduction, you have a limit to how many words you can now use. Okay, what I've opened here is my info panel, right? And I did that by going to window and info. Now, what this is telling me is this paragraph here has 34 words. Let me zoom in here so you can see it. It has 34 words, 6 lines, and 238 characters. This paragraph here has 47 words. So what does this tell you? When you're doing your document and you are now writing the actual text, if you exceed the total amount of text here, then that means that your word count will not fit in your design, and that means your frame is going to have to get bigger, your design is going to have to change. You guys understand this important point? Right. So when when you are fitting InDesign, so when you are fitting your text information into these frames that you have here, sometimes you'll write a paragraph and you won't necessarily know if the paragraph will fit in the space for the text, right? So by putting the gibberish in, you can then count the words that's in the gibberish, which is basically placeholder text. And if it says there's 500 words here, then you know that your actual paragraph that you want to write for your layout needs to be like 500 words. All right. So we already set up this paragraph and we decided that we want the paragraph to have this amount of words and to have this look and feel. Now, when you're actually, we fill the paragraph with placeholder text, so this text doesn't make any sense. So if we want, when we actually get the proper text, the actual text to use, if we want to insert it in our design without changing the look and feel of our design, we would need to use approximately the same amount of words that are here in order to let the paragraph look the same way. So if I open the info panel, you realize that I'm able to check the amount of words in this paragraph. So it's 47 words, and I can check the amount of words in this paragraph. So when I'm actually writing the actual text, maybe I write it in Word or write it in WhatsApp or whatever it is. Maybe it's a group project and somebody else is writing the description or the introduction. You can tell them, hey, your introduction should not have more than 34 words. Because if it has more, it's going to change my design. And InDesign allows you to check that. Here's another feature as well, and we're going to kind of stray a little from our layout. Now, let's insert the image here. Now, the image to insert here, if we look back on our mirror board here, this image here is where is it? Right, project title page. That's this image here, which is a Photoshop file. So if we go to our working folder, and here it is, and we're going to download this one, and then we're going to place, we're going to go to file. Oh, we need to select the frame first that we want to use. So we're going to go to file, place, and we're going to choose that. All right. So just like before, we have now inserted the image here, and you can see that the image is way bigger. So to adjust this, we're going to use our direct selection tool. And then when we zoom out, we can actually see the actual size of our image. So you can see that this is our image, and that it needs to fit in this area here. So we can just resize this. And notice that the whole image won't fit because the ratio is not exactly the same. Let's make sure that we hold shift so that we're not changing the ratio of our image. We don't want to skew the image in any way. There we go. So we're just gonna size it so that it falls inside the frame. There we go. And I'm actually using my arrow keys to line it up. There we go. And we can preview that to see what it looks like using the overprint. Now, some key things to note. Remember earlier when we use this placeholder text, I know that I don't want my text to be longer than my image. I don't want the text to be wider than the word introduction here, and I want it to align here. Now, this is a principle of design called alignment. But in order for this to be possible, the person who is writing this needs to use an approximate of the same amount of words. That's important. If they use more words, then it's not going to line up in the design way that I prefer. All right, good to go. All right, so I have finished my second page here. All right, and I can, I wanted to use the same font for this, so I'm going to choose central bracket here. In paragraph, I'm going to say do not hyphenate. That's located here, so that way it doesn't split my words. And there we go. Now I want to show you guys something. Now imagine, let's make this a little bit more wacky. Imagine that I wanted this to fit. It's located under the paragraph panel. Right. Now let's imagine I'm going to use my direct selection tool and I'm going to select the frame of this image here. And notice that I can now edit this frame as how I would edit a vector object. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to extend my frame down here. I'm holding shift because I want it to have this stylistic look. Then I'm going to move my image to kind of fit inside this stylistic look here. So I need to make my image bigger to fill out the frame. There it is. Now clearly my text will have to change. Now the great thing is that frames are actually vector objects, so I can actually click on the shape of my frame and realign my text to fit in a similar shape. Now notice I'm losing some text down here, so I do need to make this a bit taller. And let's make it a bit wider. All right, I realize I need less words, so let's delete some more words here. There we go. So you realize that you can now change the shape of your design using, because these frames can be manipulated just like any regular object. And the good thing about this is that if you were doing a design like this, it would be very important that you use the same amount of word count. You can imagine that if you have a whole 4 paragraphs, then your entire design that you spend time working on would just be thrown out because you would have to figure out where you're going to put that additional text. So this is why in InDesign now you can use the info panel to check how many words you have here, so that when you're actually writing your final text, it will fit. You guys understand this example? Right. You actually said your answer right there. Let me just draw something here. There we go. And you can just right click and say did I forget where that is? Right. Content, and change it to graphic. Am I right? There's a right click and change to convert to frame option that you would use. But yeah, that's how you change it. So you can change it to a text frame or a graphic frame. And now you're able to, you go to file and place, and I could just place like this image. I notice the image is fitting there now. Right? And I can turn off the stroke. There we go. All right. Now, I'm not going to do all the frames. I'm going to leave some for you to do, but there is one more important point that I want to touch on. Let's see. Let's do that on the last page. Okay. So let's say on the last page, I want to put a text that says, "Thank you for viewing." Let's go here. Say, "Thank you for." There we go. So maybe I want to make this text a little bit bigger again. So using my arrow keys to make this bigger. Let us center that. And let's center Gothic bold. All right, now when you're manipulating text, let me put this a little closer. So text has its own fill and stroke controls in InDesign. So for example, right now I'm looking at the fill and stroke for a shape or an object, a shape. Now, if I switch to text, fill and stroke, what this is telling me is that this text has a black fill and no stroke. So if I swap this around, now this has a stroke and no fill. And as you can see the black stroke here. Now, as I say, this won't work for objects. So for example, if I have a shape here, if I have, oh, sorry. Now, if I click on this shape here, kind of zoom out so you can see. If I click on the shape here, I can't choose text formatting. I say this because sometimes we click on this text because we want to change the fill of the text and it's not working. So for example, if I double click this fill here and I say make it this very weird color here, then it fills the rectangle and you're saying, but no, I wanted it to fill the text. And the reason it's not doing that is because you need to be on the text formatting, not the shape formatting. So if I'm here now, then I change the fill, then the text will change. All right, so that is just one important point that keeps catching us with InDesign that I want you guys to look out for. I guarantee it will catch you one time or another. All right, now, if for example you wanted to place something on each page, like a name or a page number or something like that, instead of writing the text on the page master up here. And how this works is that if I click on double click up here, and let's say that on every page I want to have my name, Ryan Williams, on the left page here, and then on the right page, on every right page, to have Brian Williams there, and right align it over here. So now when I look on my pages now, every page has a Brian Williams here. Here it is. And every left page have a Brian Williams here as well. Okay guys, so that's how you use the slide master. So all right, so that would be our tutorial for InDesign for today, guys, right? So now the same in terms of the handing for this, there are two ways that you can hand this in. You can use the website here, click Studio Base project here, and you can submit it using the handout on the just like how you submit the other assignments, you can submit it on the handout, or you can also submit it via the mirror board. So whichever one is fine. Now over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be going through step by step this whole process here, right? So you know, that's what we're going to be doing, and from this class onward we will probably be using versions of InDesign and maybe a little Illustrator as well. So we're going to slowly start to combine these programs together. All right. Okay, guys. So that is it for today's class. All right. I will see you again next week. Remember, this week marks the end of the time available to hand in the class exercises, right? So we'll collect it up to 1 week after the last exercise, the last exercise was last week. So after today, those forms will now become closed, and then you will be able to see how much you have gotten for your exercise grades, right? All right. Anyway, guys, have a good rest of the week, and I will see you again next week. All right.
Okay.
All right.
All right, sir.
All right. Bye bye.
Sir, can I speak to you after class?
Sure. You want to talk to me now, or hold on? Let me.
Yes.
Okay.